Hello viewers, today for cleaning and servicing we have a 9-inch Galaxy Oscillations fan in the gray. This is a Type 9 style 5/8 unit. I forget what the model number is, but I'll try to find it and post it in the description that nobody reads. And this draws a whopping 0.8 amps, which is outrageous because the 16-inch ones only draw 0.9 amps, and I think the 12-inch ones draw 0.3 or something like that. So this has a shaded pole motor, C-frame shaded pole motor, and it's extremely inefficient. I don't understand why they didn't put a small PSC motor in these things. They would have lasted a lot longer, because unfortunately these do tend to have bearing issues after a while. A lot of them get kind of rattly, sometimes they lock up. But then on the other hand, they did survive quite a long time, because this one in particular, there is a backstory to this one which I'll tell in another video. But this one was in use up until the day that I bought it. A year, maybe 2 or 3 years ago I bought it now. This was in service up until the time that I bought it. So it had plenty of hours on it, and it doesn't run great anymore, but it does still run. Oh, I don't want the... Okay, well I guess we'll have to get that fixed, but well, I really didn't want it oscillating at this time, but I guess it's going to. You can see it's running kind of slow, a little rattly. You know, it's not too happy, but it's going. And I think the reality is, if it was untouched, it probably would keep going for many more seasons before it really had a problem. But now that it's in my possession, let's get it cleaned up and running nicely, so that it can run for decades to come without having a problem. I really like these fans. These are some of my favorite fans from the 80s in particular. And I have quite a few of these. I have, ironically, all but the one color I was originally looking for. There was a vacation house that we went to a number of years ago now, probably almost a decade ago, and they had one of these fans there. It was in the like foggy amber color, and that was when I started looking for one of these for my collection. And since then I've found this one, the gray one, I found the clear amber one, I found that like chocolatey kind of colored one, I found even the rare blue one, but I have yet to find the foggy amber one. So anyways, these are pretty easy to service. The blade just pulls right off. I wouldn't say it's going to pull off easily, and you do have to be careful. This one isn't quite so bad because it's the gray one, but if you're working with any of the one that are translucent, so the blue one or the amber one, you've got to be very careful with the blades, because they're delicate and they shatter real easily. This one isn't so much, so I'm going to be a little bit, not careless, but I'm going to be a little more aggressive with this one than I would an amber one or a blue one. Oh man, this is not coming off. Okay. I'm going to have to get the pullers out, which is kind of ridiculous for a fan this size, but that's what it's going to take to get it off without breaking it. I absolutely want to get it off without breaking it. I've mentioned this numerous times on this channel, but these pullers are one of my favorite tools to work with, because they serve a purpose that really nothing else can, and they work so well. So what I'm going to do here, this is all locked up, I'm going to take this puller and I'm going to put the jaws on here. Screw it out a little bit. Okay, and then once that's in place, I'll screw this in to contact the center where the shaft is. Okay, so that did break it for a little bit, but then it ran out of space. So I'm going to take, oops, I'm going to take a, what can I put in there? I'll take a screw for now. And I'm going to put the screw, hopefully y'all can see this. There we go. I'm going to put the screw in between here, like this. And that will allow me to continue pushing on the shaft, even though the shaft is kind of within there, you know, past the surface of the blade. Probably a nail would have been better, because this is going to get caught on the side of the blade as it pulls out. Anyways, I'm going to just keep going with this. I'm going to tighten this up as I go here, and the blade should start to pull off. It's moved about maybe 1/4 of an inch. Yeah, see, the screw just got stuck. Don't use a screw, that's a bad idea. You should use a nail. Anyways, the blade's moved back about 1/8 of an inch. Let's see. There we go, it's coming now. Just slowly let it move at its own pace. There it goes. Blade is off. Okay. So the reason why I needed to use that should have used a nail, but I used that screw is because the shaft was moving back, and the puller thing will not fit through the hole. But a nail, which is what I should have used, will. So you can use the nail to transfer the force of the puller onto the shaft. Okay, so the shaft is there, and the blade is off. I'll put these screws back, and my whole little shelf here fell over. That was out of balance. Okay, let's put that back. Well, it should be done with the pullers, so I'll put these away. And it should be a lot simpler from here out. That likely will be the most difficult thing that we have to do. Everything else past this point should not require any special tools or anything like that, I don't think. Of course, that's if it all goes well, which is not always the case. Okay, so we'll unscrew this, and that will release the rear guard. And this is another piece that's kind of a little brittle over the years, so we'll use some caution handling that. And then on the back we have a screw to take the motor cover off. Looks like a pretty standard size Phillips screw. This bit will work fine. Okay, and that comes off to reveal the motor. So I'm going to set all that aside to be cleaned, and I think I'm going to go ahead and clean that plastic stuff off, and I'll clean the guard off, and then we'll come back and take a look at this while the plastic pieces are drying. Alright, now we're going to get into the motor. Now the base needs to be cleaned as well. There's a lot of grime down by the switch, but I don't want to clean that and then work on the motor because the junk will probably drop down to the base. So, we're going to disconnect the oscillating mechanism, which is that screw there. Reverse threaded, which is kind of confusing. Okay, and now we're going to remove from the front these 4 screws. Let's get some of the dust off of them first, just so it's easier to see. These 4 screws will come off. And these bottom ones are pretty long. I forgot the top ones are just about as long. In fact, they're identical. Okay, so now the motor, the back will come off like that. There's a washer that's going to want to come off. We'll let that stay on there. And then let's see here. There we go. So I'll just lay this down so we can work on the motor. Now in this particular scenario, the shaft is pretty clean, so I think we'll be okay. But if the shaft has a lot of rust on it, or it's dirty at all, you're going to want to turn the thing on before you unscrew everything. And you're going to want to take a piece of sandpaper and run it over the shaft so that it cleans everything off. Because you don't want to have a rough surface here as you pull the bearing off. This is remarkably clean. Usually they're not like this, so this should slide right off. If we meet any resistance, I'll stop. But there was no resistance met, it came right off. So we have inside here, don't lose the orientation of this motor because the shaft has to go back in the same way. We have on either side, we have thrust washers, and you can see this one is starting to wear out a little bit, not a whole lot. On blue, see a little bit of wear starting to form on there. So what I'm going to do is take it off, put it on the other way. I'm going to do that on this side as well. See, this is starting to get a little bit of wear on there, so I'm going to put that back on the other way. First, before I reassemble this, we're going to clean it. I think we get one more servicing out of this sticker towel, then we're going to have to get another one. Oh, there's actually two washers on the front here. Okay, so we're going to have to revise what I just said. I didn't realize there was 2. Still reverse them, but I mean we'll still reverse the orientation, but we're going to clean them individually and reverse them individually, not as a whole. And I found that tends to keep it quiet. If the bearings are starting to get noisy, that'll quiet it down a bit. Oh, actually, you know what? After cleaning it off, it doesn't look anywhere near as worn as it did. Doesn't look too bad, actually. This one you can see it's got some wear, but it's not bad. Not bad at all. Okay, so we'll clean those off. We'll clean these front ones off as well. The front's got 3 of them. The back doesn't have 3 too. That's kind of weird. So on the front you can see we're starting to get some wear on the shaft. I can't feel it yet, so it's not really an issue, but eventually it'll start to wear down. Just going to clean both sides of the shaft off. And I'm going to clean inside the bearing as well. It's pretty dirty in that bearing. Okay, that's all cleaned out. We'll do the rear bearing as well. That was a lot cleaner. Okay. So now we're ready to re-lubricate. There's 2 kinds of oil you can use. You can use the blue can, 3-in-1, which is specifically for fans. It says it right on the box. I would not use the black can because it's not for fans. Or you can use zooming spout oiler, which is specifically for the electric motors, which of course is what this is. So we're going to oil in between the bronze bearing and the outside. There's a little wick there. We're going to put oil into that wick. That's probably more than is necessary, but actually it consumed all of that, so that was fine. Sometimes those wicks can hold quite a bit of oil. Looks like this is one of those cases. I'm going to do the same thing on the front. Let's see if it wants as much oil. Yeah, it did. Okay. That was easy enough. Sometimes it takes a while to seep in, but those bearings, I guess they were pretty dry. Okay, so now I'm going to wipe off any excess around the outer edge so it don't end up leaking later, because I don't want no leaking. Oil should not be leaking. Okay, so now we're ready to reassemble the motor. Let's see here. What's the best way to do this? There really isn't an super easy way to do this. I guess we'll do this first. We'll put all this back together. Like this. No, I can't do that because, okay, so the first thing I'll do is I'll put the shaft into the rear first. I'm going to take a little bit of oil. Where's our washers at? Put the washers in there. A little bit of oil. I'll put some on the gears. The gears really should take very lightweight grease instead, but this will be fine for now. I don't really ever use the oscillation feature, so I'm not concerned about it. And then we'll put this in here. Okay, and now that's going to go on there like that. Oh, actually we have to put the I wish to screw on a little bit differently because it could be easier to work with if it did, but that'll be like that. And then I'm going to put a little bit of oil. I'll put the washers on first. A little bit of oil on here. The oil will drip down into where it needs to be as I slide the bearing on. Okay, and that's that in place. This will go through there, and then we can screw it back together. Why those other screws went in so hard and like that. This should sit flush when it's done. There's a little hole that it fits in there, and it should be flush when it's screwed in all the way. Screws should go in like that. I don't know why two of them were going in so difficult. Oh well. Anyways, that's back together. Now you may notice at this point the shaft has become very stiff. It's not particularly stiff in this case, but it is a little bit stiffer than it should be. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a screwdriver and just kind of tap on it a little bit, not much. Move around a little bit back and forth, up and down. And that should get the bearings right into alignment, no problem. Okay, that's pretty good. Let's put the screw back into the oscillation arm, or we can throw the screw on the floor. This here would be another point that should be lubricated if you use the oscillation feature. It does not go very tight at all, just snug until it stops. Alright, let's take a quick look into this oscillation gearbox just to make sure everything is copacetic in here. Ah, jeez, the stinking ball flew out, and the spring. Ugh, I hate when that happens. It looks like there's plenty of lubrication in here, so everything is indeed perfectly copacetic. Now we have a little bit of a fiasco on our hands because there's a little ball in there, and then I have a spring here which I'm going to put back in, and then I have another ball, and these stinking balls are spring loaded against that spring and just fling out sometimes immediately after opening it. It's very difficult to get this to go back into place. So I suppose if the oscillation is working, I would just leave it alone, because otherwise you may have to deal with this. And there goes the other side, flung across the table. There it goes again. And the reason this is so hard is because it's slippery, because it's sitting in grease. So it's like impossible to really push this into place where it needs to be without it slipping. This is ridiculous. I hate this. I hate when this happens. It's been a long time since I've let this happen. Nope. There goes the other side. At this point, I'm inadvertently removing all the lubrication from here, trying to get this to go back in. Okay. It's in. Stupid thing. So what you need to do to avoid that is make sure that this shaft does not get pressed down at all when this is open. Obviously once it's in here it can be pressed down, but not when it's out. Okay, that was agitating, but that's dealt with. Okay. Now it's powered on just to make sure that everything is working. A little bit of dust in here still. Try to sweep that out. As long as it's clear for air to move through, I'm not really too worried about little specks of dust in here. You're not going to be able to see it from the outside. It's not really a big deal. Some compressed air over this is the easiest way to clean it up. But it's cold and raining today, so I'll just do this because I'm actually going outside. Well, now it's getting nicer out. I think it's up to 75. Okay, let's plug this up and see if it works still. It is oscillating. Okay. Now this flew off before, and I think this is just kind of worn out. It's good enough that it'll still work, but it's definitely starting to have an issue, so we may have to revisit that at some point in the future, but for today it's working adequately enough. Okay, now we're going to clean the base off. I put some of that blue Windex cleaner on here, and I find that works very well on the plastic to get any contaminants off. I don't like to leave cleaners on the surface, so I will follow up with a wet cloth. There's just water on it to get it off. Whatever that was came off pretty easily. I wasn't expecting that. Okay, everything is dried off. We're ready to reassemble now. We'll start with the motor housing cover. Why is this giving so many problems? There we go. Should fit into there like that. Okay. And there's this, which is it's kind of flaky, but that's just what it's going to be for now. Oh, jeez. I gotta clean the inside of that switch. That's gross still. Okay, the switch is clean now. I should have just wet washed. I didn't realize it was that dirty. Okay. Now the rear guard will go on. And ironically enough, this is better than the 12-inch ones. These tabs are metal on this. A lot of times the tabs on the 12-inch ones are plastic and they break. It's kind of bent. Let's fix that. Okay, that looks good. There's one hole that's bigger that goes at the top. And this goes on to hold it in place. And this doesn't have to go very tight, just snug. That's all. And this, these are press fit, but I think this is a little bit too tight. It's a little bit concerning. What I may do is I'll put a drop of oil in there on the shaft. Actually, it just kind of, it already has some on there. Whatever, we'll just go for it. I think it's fitting on there a bit too tight. That didn't feel quite as bad that time though. Not sure if this is going to be able to, let's turn the oscillations off. This may end up being an issue. Yeah, it will. It's just not anything near ideal. Okay, that's whatever it's going to be. And then we'll put the guard back on. Okay, let's power this thing up and see what transpires. Should be running a fair bit better now. Oh yeah, we're getting as much air as we were before on high, only on low. Gee, it seems like it's out of balance. Wow, it is out of balance. Significantly out of balance. Huh. Stupid controls. I didn't realize this was so out of balance. I'm going to have to fix that. I'm going to have to fix this too, because this isn't really working. And I don't use the oscillation feature enough for this to really be an issue, but it is kind of annoying. So the spin down time should be pretty good. It certainly is. Okay. Yeah, that's a little flaky. I'm not really sure exactly what to do about that. The blade has got to be balanced though. It's way out of whack. So let's do that. Hopefully this doesn't take too long. blade's gonna have to come off. Let's see how this goes. Reasonable that time. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take let's see, a piece of tape here. Yes, I do. I'm going to take a piece of tape and I'm going to take this say this washer here. I'm going to tape this washer onto the inside of the hub here where one of the blades is. And this will kind of replicate giving additional weight to that blade. This is a guess and check. I have no idea if that's the blade that's causing the problem or not. Let's see if it seems any better now. No, it's still out of balance. Let's try moving it over. Move it over to this blade. Well, that's worse. So we know it's not that blade. Try that blade. Okay, that's even worse. So I think, good grief. So it looks like the first blade that I tried happens to be the correct one. So I'm going to say this blade is lighter than the other two for whatever reason. Well, that's not great either. Okay, let me try comparing that to nothing. Take the washer out and I'll just put the tape there as a placeholder. Yeah, I think that improved it a little bit. Probably need more weight than that. So let's see what else I have to put in there. Right here. That's not even as heavy. Ah, here we go. I have a second washer. So let's tape these two washers in here and see if we get better balance. Beautiful. Much better. That's actually good enough that I would say probably can do it that way. So okay, so we know now that this is the blade that's not as heavy. It's this blade here. So I'm going to get the hot glue out and I'm going to start adding a little bit of hot glue to where I was putting these washers. And it's not a lot of glue. I mean, this is not heavy and that was almost fixing it. We don't need a whole lot of glue at all. Okay, here we go. Start with that much and see if that's adequate. Jeez, that's the worst, that I put on too much. I might have put too much in there. Let's see, I'm going to add a little bit more and see if it gets any better. If it gets worse, then I know there was too much. Nope, it's getting better, so there wasn't enough. Okay, gotta add a little more still. Almost there. A little bit more, I guess. And of course, at some point, we're going to cross the threshold of adding too much. So, I kind of want to do it slowly. That's really good. I think I may leave it at that. It's really pretty close. Can try a little bit more, but we're right at the threshold of where we're going to add too much and go out of whack on the other end of the spectrum. So gotta be careful here. Yeah, just a little bit more. Actually, you know what I'll do just to experiment? Because this really is just a guess and check kind of scenario. Can I get a piece over here to stick in there? Yeah, I'll just add a little bit more and see what happens. It's so close to being in correct balance. I'm going to try a little bit more, and then we'll know if it goes over, then it's, you know, too much. Okay, so now that was too much because now it's shaking a little bit. No problem, we'll just cut some out. Easy enough to do. That's one of the reasons why I like using the hot glue for this, because it's easy to take some out if you have to. So we'll just cut a little bit off the edge here. try that. It'll probably never be quite perfect. It's really just a guess and check kind of thing. At some point you just got to be satisfied with it. I think I'm there. Yeah, we're gonna go with that. That's good enough. Bearings are very happy. Alright, let's put this back on. Okay. And if it doesn't visibly shake anymore, I will be content with that. I'll plug this into the kilowatt meter too, just to see how much power does it really draw. I find it hard to believe this is a whole 0.8 amps, but I guess it could. Yeah, it's not shaking anymore, so I'm pretty content with that. That's 0.3 amps. Let's go to high. And that is 0.6 amps. And it's moving some air. These are quite strong. Balance, not 100%, but it's like 94%. And for a game of like stupid guess and check annoyances, I'll be satisfied with 94%. That is whipping the air out. And you know what? These are really quiet, so that's one of the things I like about these. On the low speed, they're almost inaudible. Of course, this room is very noisy, but even if this was a quiet room, you still wouldn't really be able to hear it. Yeah, that balance is actually pretty good. I'm content with that. Certainly a lot better than it was. Very good. Cleaned up really nice. It looks great. And it runs great too.